close your eyes and imagine the glow of a flickering film projector, the soft hum of a piano playing in the corner of a crowded theater, and the faces of an audience, silent and breathless as shadows move across the screen. It is the early 1920s. Hollywood is still young, raw, daring, and bursting with possibility. The air is thick with dreams. And in the midst of this world, one man rises, shining brighter than all the rest. His name was Rudolph Valentino, the first great Hollywood heartthrob, a man who set the standard for romance on screen, a star whose very presence changed the way audiences thought of love, desire, and beauty. But this is not just a story of fame. It is a story of longing, of loneliness, of tragedy. The story of a boy who dreamed of more and of a man who lived like a flame, bright and brief, leaving behind a legend that still lingers today. Rudolfo Pietro Filiberto Raffaello Guglielmi di Valentina d'Antongola. Even his name, long and melodic, felt like something from a storybook. He was born in Castellaneta, Italy, in 1895. The village was quiet, nestled under wide Italian skies where olive trees stretched their branches and the Mediterranean sun painted golden light across the stone streets. Rodolfo was not like other children. He was restless, curious, always moving. He dreamed of things beyond the hills of his homeland. But life was not without sorrow. When he was just a boy, his father, a veterinarian, a figure of strength and stability, fell ill and passed away. The loss left a hollow space in Rodolfo's heart. He grew up with his mother, tender and loving, but he always felt a yearning, as if destiny was pulling him towards something far away. In the quiet evenings of Italy, he would gaze at the horizon and wonder if there was more waiting for him, somewhere beyond the sea. At just 18 years old, Rudolfo made a decision that would change everything. He would leave Italy and sail to America. The year was 1913. He arrived in New York Harbor, like so many immigrants before him, staring up at the Statue of Liberty with eyes full of hope. But America was not easy. The streets were crowded, noisy, and harsh. He did not speak English well. He had little money. And yet, he carried with him an undeniable charm. At first, he worked where he could, washing dishes, tending gardens, and eventually finding work as a taxi dancer, a young man hired to dance with women who came to crowded dance halls seeking a moment of escape. It was here that his beauty began to turn heads. Tall, dark-haired, with eyes that seemed to hold secrets. Women noticed him. They wanted to dance with him, to be near him, if only for a song or two. But deep inside, Rudolfo longed for something greater. The small wages, the smoky dance halls, the endless nights, they were not enough. And so he began to dream, once again, of California, of the movies, of a new world where perhaps, just perhaps, a boy from Italy could become something more. The train to California was long, winding across the wide expanse of America. Mountains, deserts and endless skies stretched before him. And then, finally, Los Angeles, a city of palm trees and promises where the streets hummed with possibility. It was the dawn of Hollywood, a place not yet polished, not yet gilded, but already buzzing with energy, as if the very air was alive with dreams waiting to be born. Rodolfo, who would soon become Rudolph, found himself drawn into this world. But breaking in was not simple. Hollywood was filled with hopeful faces, each one chasing the same dream. At first, he was cast as the outsider, the villain, the exotic stranger. In a time when Hollywood favored clean-cut American heroes, his dark eyes and Mediterranean features made him stand apart. And yet, standing apart would become his greatest gift. In 1921, his chance finally came. He was cast in a film called The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, a sweeping epic filled with drama, war, and passion. But it was one scene, a single moment, that changed everything. Valentino, dressed in a sleek gaucho outfit, stepping into a dance hall and performing the tango. The music pulsed. His movements were sharp, elegant, magnetic. Audiences had never seen anything like it. In that instant, Valentino was no longer a struggling extra. He was a star. The tango became a symbol, a whisper of danger, romance, and allure. And from that moment forward, Rudolph Valentino was the man everyone wanted to see. Later that same year, fate offered him another role, a film called The Sheik. No one expected much from it. A desert romance, simple and melodramatic. But when Valentino appeared on screen, everything changed. As the Sheik, he was powerful, unpredictable, intense. And yet, beneath the bold exterior, there was tenderness, a sense of longing, of vulnerability that made him irresistible. Women across America were spellbound. They gasped, they swooned. Some returned to theaters again and again just to see him one more time. Newspapers wrote of Valentino mania. Lines formed outside cinemas. Fan letters poured in by the thousands. And for the first time in Hollywood history, a man, not just a woman, became the object of overwhelming desire. Rudolph Valentino had become the world's first cinematic heartthrob. Now, picture it now. The flicker of silent film, the glow of the projector, Valentino's dark eyes staring out from the screen, audiences leaning forward in their seats, breathless, enchanted, forever changed by the man they would come to know as the Great Lover. With fame comes not only love, but envy. As Rudolph Valentino's star rose higher and higher, he found himself adored by millions of women. They saw him as something new, a man who was both powerful and tender, a man who danced, who gazed, who loved with intensity. But many men did not see him that way. In the early 1920s, America was still in love with its rugged cowboy heroes, the stoic, silent types who showed little emotion. And then came Valentino. Graceful, romantic, exotic. The newspapers called him the Latin lover, but not everyone meant it kindly. Critics mocked him. Some called him too feminine. Others wrote bitter editorials questioning his masculinity. One famous article even sneered, "Is Valentino a pink powder puff?" The words stung. They were meant to humiliate, to strip away his image. And yet, Valentino stood firm. He knew that strength was not only in fists and muscles. Strength could be found in tenderness, in the courage to express love openly. And though critics laughed, audiences did not stop coming. The theaters remained full, and the women still swooned. To the world, Valentino was the perfect lover. But in truth, his real love life was far more complicated. He married twice. First, to an actress named Jean Acker. The marriage was brief and ended almost as soon as it began. On their wedding night, Jean locked him out of their hotel room, and the union dissolved before it ever truly began. His second marriage was to Natacha Rambova, a striking designer and actress with dreams as bold as his own. They were passionate, fiery, creative, a dazzling pair on the outside. But behind closed doors, their tempers clashed. Both were strong-willed, both longed to shape their own destinies, and in the end, love was not enough to hold them together. Valentino's romances off-screen were tangled, stormy, filled with misunderstandings. And through it all, he remained strangely lonely. For all the love he received from fans, the letters, the flowers, the applause, there was always a part of him searching for someone who could see past the fame, past the image, to the simple boy who once gazed at the Italian horizon, dreaming of more. Away from the lights and cameras, Rudolph Valentino was not the untouchable god his fans imagined. He was human, gentle, complex. He loved books, poetry, and quiet conversations. He was fascinated by horses, often escaping to stables where he could ride and breathe freely. He cooked meals for friends, played music, and dreamed of one day returning to Europe, perhaps to build a quiet villa by the sea. There was laughter in his life, too. He had friends who adored him, colleagues who respected him, and moments of joy that the headlines rarely told. But fame has a way of weighing heavily on the heart. And as his career soared, the burden grew heavier still. Now, picture him now, the great Valentino, stepping away from the set, removing his costume, sitting alone in a quiet room, the applause still echoing outside, but inside, only silence. A man adored by the world, and yet still searching for peace. The 1920s. A world roaring with change. Jazz spilled from smoky clubs. Women cut their hair into sleek bobs, daring to wear shorter dresses, daring to vote, daring to live differently. It was an age of liberation, of new ideas, and at the very heart of it stood Rudolph Valentino. To many women, he was not just a movie star. He was a symbol of freedom, of romance, of possibility. In an era when society still placed limits on them, Valentino's films offered something daring, a vision of passion, of adventure, of love beyond convention. He was the dream of the jazz age itself. Exotic, untamed, intoxicating. A man who invited them to imagine a life less ordinary. But behind the glittering screen, trouble brewed. Hollywood was a machine, and Valentino was caught in its gears. Studios controlled everything: the scripts, the salaries, the contracts. Valentino longed for more freedom, for roles that showed his range. But the studios wanted only one thing: the Latin lover, again and again and again. He grew restless. He wanted to prove he was more than just a symbol of desire, that he could act, truly act, with depth and power. And so disputes began. Arguments with producers, fights over money, over scripts, over control. Some in Hollywood whispered that he was difficult, that fame had gone to his head. But in truth, he was only a man who wanted to be seen, not just admired. It was a battle many stars of his era would face, but for Valentino, it was one that came too soon and ended too quickly. And then the curtain began to fall. In August 1926, Rudolph Valentino collapsed. Terrible stomach pains racked his body. He was rushed to a hospital in New York. The diagnosis? A perforated ulcer. Surgery was performed, and for a brief moment, the world believed he might recover. But the infection spread. His body weakened, and on August 23rd, 1926, Rudolph Valentino took his final breath. He was just 31 years old, a man at the height of his power, gone in an instant. The news spread like wildfire. Fans wept openly in the streets. Theaters dimmed their lights. And across the world, millions mourned the silent lover who had given them so many dreams. Picture it now. The city streets filled with mourners, the flickering candlelight, the hushed sobs of strangers, all united by one man's passing. Hollywood had lost its first great legend, and the world would never be the same. When word of Rudolph Valentino's death spread, the world seemed to stop. In New York City, his body lay in state at Frank Campbell's funeral home, and outside, a sea of mourners gathered. Tens of thousands. Some estimates say over 100,000 people lined the streets. The crowds were so overwhelming that police struggled to hold them back. Some fainted in the summer heat, some wept uncontrollably, and some refused to believe he was truly gone.
Inside, the air was thick with grief. Flowers filled the room, candles flickered, and at the center, Valentino lay in a silver coffin, dressed in a tuxedo, his face serene, as if asleep. The world had never seen such mourning for a film star. It was as if, in his passing, the illusion of the movies had shattered, and everyone realized how deeply they had loved the man behind the dream. And then, the myths began. Some whispered that he had been poisoned. Others insisted that he was not dead at all, that he had faked his death and escaped to another land. But perhaps the most famous legend was that of the Lady in Black. Every year, on the anniversary of his death, a mysterious woman dressed in black would appear at his grave in Hollywood Forever Cemetery. She carried a single red rose. She would kneel in silence, place the rose upon his tomb, and disappear. Who was she? A secret lover? A devoted fan? No one ever truly knew. But the ritual continued year after year, keeping Valentino's memory alive, turning his story into something larger than life. A tale not just of stardom, but of eternal love. Nearly a century has passed since Rudolph Valentino walked the earth. Silent films have faded into history. The jazz age is long gone. And yet, his name still lingers. He was the first man to be called a Hollywood idol, the first to stir such passion, such devotion, that crowds filled the streets for him. He broke barriers of what it meant to be masculine. He dared to be tender, to be romantic, to embody desire, not just dominance. And in that daring, he changed cinema forever. Tonight, as you drift into sleep, think of Valentino not only as a star, but as a soul. A young man who left Italy with nothing but dreams and gave the world a story it would never forget. His life was short, but his legacy was eternal. So, close your eyes now. Imagine the flicker of silent film, the soft music of a distant tango, and the gaze of a man whose heart beat so brightly that it still echoes across time. Sleep well and dream of stories that never fade.